Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Research Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we're back this week after our long Gettysburg trip. We got a good guest tonight. Our guest hosts the Mariner of Spirits here on Supernatural Link. He's also hosts a show When Spirits Connect, and he's part of the Texas Wraith Hunters, big paranormal investigator, good friend of mine. Please welcome my guest at this time, Greg Kotz.
Hey Russ, how you doing?
Hey, Greg, welcome to the show.
Welcome. I'm glad I'm here. That's for sure.
So, tell my audience a little bit about yourselves, the ones that aren't familiar with what you do, and
I've been around for a while now. I've been with different groups. I started out in the south side of Chicago, and then when I left there, I came up here to Lakeville and helped out. At the same time, I was helping out somebody up here, and it got to the point where it was time for me to keep on going. And I like to go ahead and do this so much that I thought I'd make this a mainstay of my work as far as the paranormal is concerned, because there's a lot that people need to know, and a lot of times people will come into the comment section and that's the only way they're going to find out. And I think that's what our job is, basically, besides to go ahead and interview people and talk to them. So let's say hi to everybody, like, for instance, Julie.
hey, Julie,
you know
welcome in.
it's something it's really interesting, and I like it. It gets confusing at times because it is two shows a week, plus then the two with Reggie. So so hey, Joanne. But this where it is. I know you've got to like it too if you put up with it. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah,
mean?
definitely.
And I'm sort of envious of you because of what you've been doing this last weekend. This that's rare, very cool.
Oh, yeah. It was an awesome time, especially at the Warrens Paracon and hanging out with family and friends, and got to meet a bunch of the podcast, my guests in person.
And that really makes a difference. That you have a real connection with people, and that's what I think is really important about this end of the job, is the fact that we get to know more about people than normally.
Yeah, definitely. So, tell my audience a little bit about your show, When Spirits Connect.
When Spirit Connect came evolved, sort of evolved. It was, at first, it was going to be two people doing an Estes method, and it came down to the fact where you start to go ahead and want to have somebody that's asking questions, and then that's a moderator. So then it's like, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we go ahead and why don't we do it over long distance? So we have a team like by you, and we have a team out in Texas, and we have all over the country. We have teams, and we get together with one of those teams and our teams, and get together and we do the same basic thing, and see if spirit, if there's any relationship with spirit actually connecting via the internet or whatever you want to call it. Do they use that to go back and forth? And some of the times we get really what I say lucky, and I'll say lucky because there's at first it's like, well, is this really spirit? And then it's like, well, what if it's not really spirit and it's alien?
Right.
You know, so there's a couple real fine lines there.
Oh, you're
Oh,
welcome.
Linda Judd is a member of a group that we have that's called Psychics Unite, and it meets on Mondays, and it's on here. Scotty Rourke, and for those that don't know, Scotty's pretty sick, so if you get the opportunity, say a few prayers for him. He's my mentor, and he's been he means a lot to me. He means a lot to a lot of people. He's a giving person, and that all is part of this. And I know that when you look at people and you think about all the people that you've met, and it's nonstop. The amount of episodes that we've done, and Reggie is the kind of guy that Reggie will always go ahead and tell you what episode it is.
Mhm.
And I'm at the point where I'm going, I don't need to know that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep.
How old are you? Yeah, okay. But that's the way it is. That's part of the fun of it, and the people you've met. And but that show is that way, and the way I described it. And what's interesting is the amount of things that come through at times. And it's not like nailing right on, hitting the nail right on the head. It's a little different than that, because it is spirit that are talking, and there's times that there's spirits in the room and they're in somebody else's room, or that kind of thing, and they convey that thought. uh I got sort of hooked on it at Old South Pittsburgh, and I had already done it quite a few times on my own, and I had a partner at GRS, which is Ghost Research Society, and his name is Michael Wright, and Mike was, he'd go along and he'd be my partner on this, and we were filming it. We would film the sessions and everything, and but then it got heavier than that. It got more involved in that. There was something else there, and it was a ticking that we had heard, that were picking up through the headsets, and we were trying to figure out what in heaven's name is this ticking. And it went on and on and on. And some of the people and I know from Supernatural Link
Yep.
got together, and they had that big round table, and they had the Rathmans, and they had the only Yakovati wasn't there, but Austin was there. I'm trying to think. There were like 4 or 5 guys at this table, and I said that I had hid this. There she goes. A couple of the people that are in the room understood, you know, what I was trying to say, because my question to them was, I'm hearing this ticking. Is this really spirit, or is it something beyond spirit? And they sort of were looking at each other across the table, and they started to smirk at each other. And they went ahead and they says, "Isn't this what Frank was all about?" And at that point, when I heard that, I just went, "That's it," because I was trying to work with my spirit guides, and I was trying to get to converse with them, and that's all here.
Mhm.
But when you go ahead and you use a spirit box, it's almost more of a to me, it's more of a validation.
Right.
So if you're doing a session like that, and all of a sudden you hear the spirits come back and start to talk to you, it's like, wow, this is getting really cool. But it doesn't happen all the time.
No.
So you sort of wonder about it, and you wonder about where you are, and are you at the right part of the what is the word, precipice? Like, if this is going to be the last thing you're going to hear, are you going to hear it from them, or are you going to hear it from a loved one, or somebody
Right.
that's alive? You just don't know. But that's what keeps me working on it, because once I heard that, it was like that was no stopping. I just thought it was the neatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, we do a lot of it on like our investigations and stuff, a lot of Estes methods, and we just actually learned a trick at that one Paracon we were at when we were doing an Estes method with the haunted doll. Mike from Epic VIP events, he does a countdown when he goes to count them out of Estes, which puts pressure on the spirits to get them to talk even more. And a lot of times you'll get the spirit will actually do the countdown for you because they're done talking to you.
Oh, wow! How big of a countdown do you do?
He he lets them go for about 15 minutes and then he'll start at 10 and count it down from 10. Now, like with the doll, he was counting down to 10 and it went 2 to the spirit box.
Pretty
So
cool.
we just did one at the orphanage in Gettysburg, and it did the same thing when we did the countdown on it. It put pressure on whoever was talking through Julie, and it was like count doing our countdown for us.
Yeah, I don't know how many countdowns I've done.
Yep,
Uh,
see, there's Julie right there. Did that at the
there
orphanage.
she
Yep.
She's an awesome woman.
Oh yeah, we had a ball out in Gettysburg.
Yeah, and I'm really really envious of all the people that you got to really go ahead and hang around with, because that was the same thing that happened when Brandon had that Paracon out there in what was this, one of the Carolinas,
Mhm.
South Carolina. And and I used to go to all the Chicago ones, and they used to have everybody there, and the Staffords were there, and it was back in the day, and I'm fortunate, very fortunate and blessed to have met and became friends with a lot of the bigger names
Mhm.
as far as ITC is concerned. And there's not too many I don't know, but the ones that always stand out to me is a gentleman, and we all know him, is Bruce
Yep.
Holiday.
Yep.
And you got Bruce, and then you've got a guy by the name of Jeff Resman.
Yep. I've
And
heard it. Well.
and I never put it together. And to make a little story for you, I was asked at the Chicago Paracon to talk about the Estes, and it was on a Friday night. And I was outside of the auditorium, and I had my stuff there, and I was trying to make sure everything was covered, and I had everything ready to go in that. I never ended up speaking that night because it was too late.
Mhm.
So they sort of just postponed me. And I can remember this gentleman coming out. I never met this guy. And he just came out of nowhere and he just came up and he goes, "Hey, SB7, huh?" He says, "Oh, headphones. What are you going to do?" And he says, "I'm Jeff Rusman." And I said, "I'm Greg Koss." We started talking. And we talked for about a half hour, maybe more. And he says, "Oh, you're going to need a guide for that. You have to have a guide." And this goes back now, probably maybe 4 or 5 years. One Chicago's, I think one of the last Paracon was, I don't know what year it was. I want to say I thought it was 16, but I don't think it is. But anyway, when he said that to me, he says, "I'll tell you what we can do is I'll I'll call my one of my guides and I'll let you use him until you get yours established." And I says, "Wow, that's really really nice of you." And I worked with him, and he called him up and he called him by name. And every time I would do a box session from then on until I got mine, I would use his. And he's still around and he's still a great guy and he's due to come on with me again at least once. I wanted to go ahead and get him and his wife to be another pair because I think, a different perspective on the Estes is so darn important, especially from different people. You know what I mean? You can't, this kind of thing is not something that you just write down on a piece of paper and that's how it happens.
Right.
You can never tell what's going to happen.
No, you never know.
So, I know you do it a lot and, it's the same thing. It's like we have to get together. And I think I mentioned this to you the other day. I think, you get a partner and then we can go ahead and you guys can come on the show and we can go ahead and we can do something on there together, which
Yeah,
is,
definitely.
it's a real bonding. It's more of a bonding than a lot of other things in life. And I think it's important for people to understand that this communication is something above and beyond.
Mhm.
I don't know what how you really evaluate it, or how you place it in your theme of things or your scheme of things as far as your investigations are concerned. I find myself wanting to limit the time element so that there's everybody in the room gets an opportunity.
Right.
You know what I mean? And how do you guys play that?
That that works for us too. I mean, we usually for like investigations, it's usually like four of us. So usually Julie's the one that goes under, and Chris and I are asking questions. If we got Jen with us, Jen will go under, and then the rest of us will ask questions between Julie and I.
And then do you swap out?
Sometimes it depends on the level of activity. If we, but like
Okay.
with residential, you gotta kind of move on, and so you cover that whole house,
Yeah.
depending on how big the location is.
Yeah, well, most of the houses, like Valeska, Axe Murder House,
Mm,
that's not a very big house. You could do one upstairs to one downstairs, and you cover the whole thing. You've been at some big locations, and I
yep.
have too. But mine are all out east. Mine are all in Virginia and South Virginia, not the Carolinas. Ohio, Indiana. I've been a lot of that stuff. And it's if I don't bring this stuff, I feel naked.
Right.
You know, because it's the way I investigate.
Well, that's like Mariah brought up a good point, but users need to learn how to eliminate the flaws in which it makes less legitimate and too subject. Which she's right on that too, because everything's got its flaws when it comes to equipment. And
I know that there's a lot that comes into play with the different machines
mhm,
because they all act a little differently.
yep,
But the pauses are very important, I think, and giving them time. So how you did them out at Gettysburg too, didn't you?
yep. We did one at the orphanage. Julie went
Okay,
under,
did
and Chris and I were asking questions.
and how'd that turn out?
It turned out pretty good. We ended up contacting the woman that was actually in charge of the orphanage. That I think her name was Rosa, and the kids never liked her. She was very mean, and they locked her
Yeah,
down in the dungeon down there.
yeah. I
So,
was going to say if you asked
and Mariah
because they
said,
know. Go ahead.
but the process is easily fixable. Record the sections and have a splinter with a speaker so you all can hear.
You mean a
So,
splitter?
yeah, a splitter.
Yeah, I know. We had a lot compared to if you regular did it a regular spirit box session and you just had the box and was out loud. Uh, I I went away from that, and the reason I went away from that was some of the stuff that had happened. One of the times I was at Gettysburg, and and you've heard the story because I've mentioned it on your show
Mhm.
when you guys were out there and that, and it's the things that happen, and it's how people pick up different noises or words.
Right.
So and if you pick it up wrong and you have a group of people standing there, they always want to go ahead and throw their word in there too,
Mhm.
and that becomes confusing to say the least.
Right.
And that's not what that's supposed to be about.
Yeah. And I do when we do our SS method, or if we're doing like a regular spirit box session without the headphones, I'll run a digital voice recorder with it. So that way, if we're not understanding it, the recorder actually understands it.
So do you actually channel too, don't you?
Yep.
Okay. So that's the same thing with me. And there came a time in the beginning when it first happened. The first two or three times it happened, it was like it started to scare me because I know it wasn't me. And that's the time that the noise goes away,
Mhm.
if you know what I'm saying. And things just come out. And for people that haven't gone ahead and experienced that yet, it's not something to go ahead and be afraid of.
Right.
It's part of your calling to a certain extent.
Yep.
And if you take it that way, then and you go ahead and talk to your guides a lot about it because they'll be the ones that tell you whether you're crazy or not.
My
You
dad
know.
does the same thing too. He's got them abilities too, and uses them on our cases and with our clients and stuff like that.
When you first did a double, Can you remember anything weird about it?
Uh, it's been so long ago now and so many cases deep.
It's
Like
something to me that I never forget, no matter how many I did, because I did it with a lady by the name of Kelly Ham.
mhm.
And she was a new member at GRS, and we were all out at Old South Pittsburgh. And they set it up, and they wanted us, the staff out there wanted us to do a double. And I couldn't tell you what I said, you know.
Right.
And it was like, well, you said this and that, and we've got a tape of it. And you know who Jason Snyder is from down by you? He's
Yeah.
not too.
Yep.
Jason Snyder is an old friend of ours, and he was there at Old South too. And we were he recorded the whole thing. So, and I still haven't got a copy, and I'm going to end up seeing him shortly. And I've got to remember to go ahead and say, hey, Jason, I need to get a copy of that because that was the first real time that I did it with somebody that, we're all at different levels
Mhm.
as far as that ability is concerned. Not that you and I can't go ahead and converse back and forth together, but there seems to be a chemistry that we're not responsible for that happens.
We had a question here. Masked Man asked, "What's it like being in a room with a demon?"
Uh, I don't think I've been in a room with a demon. I've been in a room with an angry spirit, quite a few angry spirits, but I don't believe with a demon. And your Johnson brothers
Mhm.
from the East Coast, when you talk to them, the one brother will say he's been on 60 cases or something like that, and he's only run into a demon once.
Yeah, they're very rare to run
Yeah,
into.
so I mean, this isn't something that, just because we do sessions like this, we end up running into people like that, or spirits, excuse me, or a person that's really got a bad, he's got bad juju.
I mean, the amount of cases we've done, they've either turned out to be malicious spirits. I mean, we have ran into a demonic case here and there a few times, but a lot of times it's more here than it is demonic, so to speak.
They make you think that,
Mhm.
right? That's what I was going to say. I mean, because I think it is. It's more of a trick to get something they wanted.
Yeah, like Mariah said,
Yes.
you have to believe in them first and so much irresponsible and inaccurate claims. Yeah.
Well, you have to know they're there. They can be there. There's a possibility of that happening, but you can pretty much sense by the atmosphere you're in.
Yep.
And we've all been in atmospheres that are close to something like that. But I don't sit there and go, I think it's a demon. You know what I mean?
Yep. Like Julie and I, we've encountered several of them. Some of the cases
Okay.
work.
Yeah,
I've
I think
actually,
I'd run the other way.
yeah, they're not fun to deal with. I mean,
No.
I've been scratched in threes. I've been hit. I've been pushed, thrown in the doors. But a lot of your residential cases are somebody that once lived in the house and they died there. And to them, you're trespassing on their property. They don't realize they're dead. They're protecting their land and their property. You come in and start tearing down a wall that they're used to, of course they're gonna get angry and they're gonna get malicious. They're because you're breaking into their house.
That's the best way to look at it. She says, I got jumped. It was like riding in the back seat of a car, not being in control of anything going on. I look after or look up to Julie.
Julie's good at what she does.
Yeah, she's very good.
Mariah says, in the same vein, why don't people have interactions with angels? You
I
do.
don't.
You do when you have a near death experience, because when I got my car accident and I was just a passenger, I could have died that night. I had a guardian angel on my side because we rolled 5 times down the road and ended upside down in a ditch. And I only walked away with a fractured kneecap and 3 of my fingers were cut open. So there was angels on my side that night.
Yeah, I had something pretty crazy myself, but I was hauling a 20-foot bass boat down a 2-lane highway in northern Minnesota when I thought I saw something. I was driving, my partner was sleeping, and I thought I saw something, and I twitched. I just looked like that, and when I looked like that, my I twitched the steering wheel. I was
Mhm.
doing like 74, 75, and it crossed. Before I could look back, my left front tire was in the gravel on the opposite side of the road. And you know what happens when that happens.
Yep.
You gotta ride it out. And she went down and all hell broke loose. It was like we were ambushed,
Right.
to say the least. And I don't wish it on anybody. To say you come out and you know, my neck was worse and the top of my head. And it's the first time I've ever been in a pickup where, with the seatbelt on,
Mhm.
that my head actually went off the roof of the truck 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a bag behind us of Planters peanuts, a big 5 pound sack of them.
Mhm.
When the boat hit the trees, we came unglued and we started to spin. The truck was spinning, and these objects were floating around the cab of the truck, and it was like the dream's in black and white. I still see the dream
Mhm.
occasionally for some reason. I don't know why. Probably to slow down or use a little more common sense on the road. But what it was the peanuts, and they were just floating around in the truck like you were in a space capsule somewhere.
Right.
Crazy.
Mariah had another question, but why aren't angels interacting in the same ways demonic spirits interact during investigation? Well, demonic, the reason why they interact is because they know, like us investigators, are there to take away their vessel. We're there to get rid of them. So basically, we probably do have angels guarding us. We just don't see them. They don't come through on our equipment because we're there after what we're brought there to do.
I would say they're there the same way. They're up above. They're just watching.
They're just watching to make sure we're okay, and they probably will
And
intervene if things get hairy.
yeah, I don't spend a lot of time dwelling on demonic things.
And that's the best thing not to. I learned from Wade Kirby and the Nesper guys. You do not dwell on those things, even like the haunted objects. You don't dwell on them.
because you can go ahead and make things happen with them if you do.
Yep.
And then it's going to affect you.
And that's like Julie and us, we were about around a whole bunch of demonic objects.
I've seen, who the Newkirks, when the Newkirks had their museum, and
Mhm.
they were the only ones around. I can remember saying it, and I had my phone with me, and I said, and I was talking to Dana, and I says, is it okay if I take a picture of this doll? And it was like, yeah, okay, because I said I don't want to take a picture of that doll. Okay, you know where I'm going. So I
Yep.
took a picture of this doll. I took like two pictures of the doll, and I never even checked on my phone. And I got home because I had a whole bunch of pictures on the phone. I got home, and guess what? Guess what pictures were on there?
Probably that doll you didn't want to take a picture of.
Yep. I said, how the heck did that happen?
Oh yeah, well, that's like the Sandy Hook idol that they have in the Warren's Occult Museum. Julie's husband Chris did a lidar thing on it through his phone, and it was showing up a figure showing up on that satanic idol doll. It was the craziest thing. You can see like the arms coming out of it, and then a figure appeared right beside it.
I think maybe an answer, more of an answer, and not that I have all the answers. I don't think any of us have the capacity to know everything about demonic
No,
entities, but it's important to know that, if something's going to happen to you pertaining to one of those beings, you probably have been schooled to the point where you understand a little more of them than everybody else in the group does.
right?
And there's a reason why they're coming on to you. I don't think it's the fact that they have an easy take, or somebody they can just grab and go. I don't think it's that. I think they actually like a confrontation more
Oh yeah,
than they like.
they feed on that. They feed on the attention, and they look on who's got a bad past, who's got negative energy with them. That's what feeds it.
And it goes by your background,
Yep.
where you were raised and everything else. I think the Johnsons, do they both speak Latin?
Yeah, they both do.
They do.
Yep.
Okay. I can do the mass in Latin because I was brought up that same way. But as far as speaking Latin, I only had 2 years of it, so I'm not fluent in it by any way, shape, or form. And once I got out of school, that was the last thing I wanted to remember for quite some time. But
Our demonologist friend out here in Missouri, Farah, she does it too. She does the St. Michael's prayer in Latin.
Potter not the Our Father. I could do the Our Father. I know
Julie
that,
speaks
but
it as well.
were you an altar boy, Julie? She's gonna beat me. She's gonna come after me with a stick.
Might.
I enjoy her. I enjoy her so much. When you guys, when she comes on and she has her show and you come on to her show, I just sit there mesmerized. She's such a cool lady.
He said yes, Episcopal.
There's so much that's been changed with all of our organized religions. It's not even funny.
Yeah,
And I think they took a lot of the barriers down.
mm,
Diet Catholic. I am an NPC now. I'm a non-practicing, and I was when I went overseas. It was that's the way it was. It was like, no, I don't think so. I wasn't that fluent that or that had that strong of a belief to go ahead and think that that would go ahead and save you.
right. Well, that's like talking to Father Bob Bailey at the Paracon, who was on Paranormal State, insisted Ryan Buell. He's an
Yeah.
interesting man to talk to on some of his cases that he's been on, and he's gonna be on my show again. We're gonna do a part 2 with Father Bob,
Oh, that'll be good. That'll be a great show.
and then we're
Did
gonna
you have you how long have you how long have you known him?
Father Bob, I actually just met him.
Okay. Very complicated person.
Oh, yeah. I just met him in person at the Paracon, but he was on my show once before. I reached out to him, but I've watched him on Paranormal State when he's helped Ryan on some of the PRS cases, and
But that's like you and me watching the Cowboys and the Indians. You know what I mean?
right.
That was a long that was a long time ago now
Yep.
in the paranormal. You know, there's a lot of people today that have no idea to what extent that show took, or what it where it took the people that were on it
Yep.
afterwards.
Yeah.
That was this
And
guy. Go ahead.
they all got to go up on stage and talk about it because they worked with Ed and Lorraine on cases like the Johnson brothers worked with Ed and Lorraine on the Conjuring case. Father Bob worked with Lorraine on Paranormal State.
I know there's a lot of people that talk about them, and I was really close one time. I just missed one of them. I missed her in Chicago, and it didn't bother me except for after the years went by, it was like you had a golden opportunity there.
Yeah,
It's like meeting the daughter to the Conjuring, or to the is it at Amityville, right? No, the Conjuring.
Conjuring Andrea Perrin.
Andrea. Yeah.
Yep, we got to meet her as well at Metacon when they were out here in Missouri. And
I've been
my dad went up to her and says, "Hey, I'm gonna make your day." He goes, "Okay." He says, "I'm related to Ed and Lorraine Warren," and John Zaffis was sitting next to her, and John goes, "Yep." So she come out, gave my dad a hug. My dad actually gave her a reading and was telling her that she lost somebody close to her and stuff like that, and he picked up on who it was, and so she come running out, give him a big hug, and told him to keep his gift, don't lose it.
that is awesome.
Yeah, she was a very nice lady. I loved talking to her, and I guess that night she went outside and held her hands up to the sky, started singing Frank Sinatra "My Way," and the whole sky lit up.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, she was just calling down a bunch of stuff, and the sky was just lighting right up. I guess it was an amazing thing to see.
I think I've been trying to have her on for 3 years.
Yeah, I've tried to get her on mine. I know she's got her own show too on Friday nights too as well. She was doing a podcast. Her and Rupert Guy.
Yeah, it's something, when you try to go ahead and get a hold of her. But she's so busy. You
Oh
know, there's no way that I could, you know, keep on pursuing it in the same year. It's like if it doesn't work, buddy. You know, you
that's like
know.
I've been trying to get John Zaffis on my show, and he's such a busy man. He's all over with these Paracons, and
He thinks I'm a crazy man. The amount of times I've gone ahead and I have had Bruce Holiday on,
mhm.
and now it's like, Bruce, please, 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 Bruce, because it's you'd
That,
figure it would get easier, right? It doesn't,
that's what I
because
do to John too. I'm like, John, I'm your cousin.
they you see, I don't think they separate us the same way we separate people.
Right?
You know what I mean? We're still in the same family. It's like, you sit down there and wait and don't wet your pants anymore, and then when that's done, you can come up here and I'll talk to
Right?
you. It's like we're kids, and I'm not a kid. So I mean, it's a different way of looking at it. But
Right.
I know when the time comes, I will talk to her. I will have her as a guest when it's supposed to happen.
Exactly.
It's not when I want it to happen, and you know that as a rule anyway.
Yep.
We've all been here long enough to understand the way things go.
Oh yeah.
But to me, it's been a wild ride. I wouldn't ask for it any other way. I just want to continue to do it and do it to the best I can, to be informative the best I can to the people around me. And everybody's going right now and they're going, yeah, but you hang around with Reggie. I says, I do 2 shows with Reggie. What am I supposed to?
Right.
Because Reggie's a star seed. I don't know if you know that or not, but he's a star seed.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to say anymore. You got your own judgment, a way to look at things, and
Right.
you just got to take it for what. And then once you get into it, it'll be like, what's with this guy? But he's. I wouldn't want to be on an investigation with anybody else.
Right.
He's one of those people. He's got your back, and in the paranormal community on a team, it's best that everybody has everybody's back.
Yep. And that's like uh, Tony Sparrow said to me when he was a guest on my show. He says, with all of us doing these podcasts, we're keeping the paranormal alive. We're spreading the word about the paranormal and educating people because our younger generation, they're going to be our next up and comers when they get into it. And you're getting a lot more kids getting into the paranormal investigating field. So they're our future to keep this going and helping people.
There are different breeds though.
Mhm.
There's some younger ones, and then there's other ones that caught on late. They weren't super young, or they weren't. Uh, I ran into a lady, and I'm not even going to mention her name, who was a psychic medium, who was one of the ones that first told me about what I have behind me. And I had a squad of guys, and I was down. I made it home. Okay, so I was down on one knee, and I had my hand on my forehead. I was shaking my head back and forth, and they were going, "It's okay." And she was telling me this, that this is what she saw,
Mhm.
and it made absolutely perfect sense to me. And it was the first time it was described to me, because you can't hang on to that kind of stuff, you know. So you got to let go.
Right.
So I mean, that's the only thing that you can go ahead and say to everybody that ever pursues a spirit. If the spirit doesn't want to, communicate with you or have a relationship with you, then that's okay.
Yep.
They have their respect, just like we should have our respect.
Yep. Well, that's like Jason Hawes always says, ghosts were people too. Go in with respect.
Yeah.
Don't go in acting like an idiot, provoking them and fussing at them and disrespecting them. Go in and introduce yourself. 9 times out of 10, you'll get results when you're nice to them and respectful. If you go in and
Even
pull back and start cussing and provoking at things and
there's nothing wrong with a few prayers every once in a while either.
exactly.
You know what I mean? That's why I start off the one show with the prayer of Saint Michael, and then I end up with one that I created. And the reason I created that second one was because of the years of watching Greg Bakken do his 10 o'clock show. And when he closed it up, it was like he would say, that's it. Don't go to anybody or anything like that. And I just went ahead and said, well, I want to double make sure on
Right.
my end.
And it's good when you do that for your when spirit connects too, because with that spirit box is like an invite, as if you were playing with a Ouija board. You're inviting something in, so you're just opening that door to let something in. You don't know what's gonna come out of there.
Yeah,
So
I don't. I'm still at odds, or not at odds. I'm still thinking a lot about what is actually happening, and if somebody is actually coming in, where are they coming from? I thought I'd be able to make a real connection,
right,
over the distances, and get some ones that would answer some questions. But we've never really changed the format to the point where we have thought about questions to ask, real questions, not
hmm,
just, oh, Art, how long you been here? Something like that. No, no, it's where do you come from? And start on that line of questioning, to just go ahead and make it a little more to the point,
right,
because otherwise they're going to just go ring around the rosy like anybody else is.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. Well, that's like when we were at Missouri State Penitentiary when Nesper was out there with their haunted objects at the Get Haunted event. We did used our abilities instead and not use the spirit box. Julie started us off and she channeled into a nasty man that was down there, and she had 6 grown men go running out of there when she started cussing and carrying on. The man wasn't happy because they were using his cell for storage with all those artifacts and stuff, and so we ended up I took over and I channeled into my abilities, and I started picking up on cell number 20, which was that man's cell. We confirmed that with Nesper. Started picking up on some of the objects that they had upstairs, which they already packed up, so it was kind of like leftover residual energy. And then picked up on JB the firebug. But anytime somebody asked a question, if I could hear them, I wouldn't respond. Julie wouldn't respond if she heard us ask a question. So when later on, all of a sudden, I had the blindfold on and I something dark just come through, and I was like, "Nope, I'm not talking to you." Pulled myself out, and it had a real gruesome looking face and just had that real dark feeling to it. So I was like, "Nope, you're probably a leftover residual from one of those objects they had up there from the museum."
Yeah, there's been some badass prisons, that's for sure.
So what's the goal when you visit a location? Well, for me,
Communication.
it's when I'm doing residential is there to help the client. That's what I'm there for. That's what my goal is. That's what Julie's goal is. We're there to help people when we get called into a location. Not like going to Missouri State or Waverly. We're just there to communicate and talk with the spirits of the place. But for the residential, we're there to help the client and get whatever they're out of there or whatever else help they need. We don't abandon the client unless we can't help them anymore, then we get them help some other ways.
Yeah, that's a difficult maneuver.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that a lot of people come into this and they have no idea how they have to prep, and they have to be focused before they even go inside.
Yeah, because I mean, with a residential, you could take something home with you.
Oh yeah.
You have to do a lot of cleansings on yourself, your equipment, your vehicles, because you're on that property. Even though you get it out of the house, it's still on that property for a little while until it decides it wants to move on when it knows it can't get back into the house.
Have you ever thought of not parking on the property?
There's a lot of times we park out on the streets.
Okay, and then you have a line
Yep,
that you've established.
yep.
Okay.
But we're bringing equipment into the house, so we have to cleanse that equipment. So we do the cleansing on the equipment on the property.
You see, on the one group, this last group that we could have done a few privates, it was the fact of the liability issue that came into play insurance wise. Hi, Donna.
Well, we just hit our hour mark.
Uh
I got
oh.
your show coming on.
Yeah, I'm gonna. If thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome,
It's
Greg.
it's been a pleasure. I think you really got your act together. That's for sure. You've really done a lot of great things already, and here's to many more years of the same.
I appreciate it. We got one last question. Do you find the spirits know you're coming before you do, spirit, like spirit internet? Yeah,
Yes,
we do, and that's why we don't tell the clients when we're coming, so they don't know. We like the element of surprise.
crazy. Well,
Well,
you're gonna shut her down, and I'm gonna run, and I'll be right back down to start her up.
alrighty.
Thank you very much, Russ.
You're
I
welcome,
really
Greg.
appreciate it. Good night, everybody.
Thank you guys for joining me tonight. You can catch me next week right here, same channel. My guest next week is Dave Giuliano, who's the owner of Ghost Hunter store. He's also a demonologist, paranormal investigator. He'll be my guest next week. You can catch me on Greg Costa's show, The Mariner of Spirits, next. I'm his guest tonight, so we decided to do a flip flop. He's my guest, I'm his guest. So we will see you all next week.